Okay, so today we will be looking at the newest Unearthed Arcana that came out today. Today is April 26th. The new 1D&D Playtest 5, which I have on the right here, just came out today. So I was going to be taking a look at it, comparing it to some of the things from the original 2014 Player's Handbook, which I have here on the left, and I'll give you any insights that I may have. So what's new in this? I did already watch the YouTube video that came out about this, so I have an idea of what I'm getting into. So it mostly just goes over some of the basic things, but I'll try and go in a little more in depth. So what's new? Weapons. There's new options for weapons that appear here for you to try out. Spells. More spells are ready for playtesting. Feats. Several epic boon feats and the weapon master feat appear here. 5 classes. So this is the biggest one. This is the biggest 1D&D playtest we've gotten so far. It's a total of 50 pages, which is essentially its own mini book. So we have Barbarian, Fighter, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard, and then the only one they have left to do, other than Artificer, which they're only tackling the Player's Handbook right now, so Artificer won't appear, but Monk will be in a future UA. And then a Rules Glossary, of course. Okay, so weapons. This section contains playtest versions of weapons in the Player's Handbook. Here you'll find tables, several revised weapon properties, and a new type of property, mastery property. When we revisit the experts and priests in future Unearthed Arcana articles, some of them won't gain access to these special properties. Okay, and then they have a design note, weapon updates. Here are the new elements in this weapon section. Each weapon now has a mastery property, a special property that requires a feature to unlock. The mastery properties are described in this document. Short sword has been returned to being a martial weapon. Actually, before I go any further, let's go find weapons in this section in the Player's Handbook so we can kind of compare. So short sword has been returned to martial weapon, which in the original 2014 Player's Handbook, it was a martial weapon, but then in an earlier playtest, they moved it to simple, but it's now back to martial. The net, which doesn't deal damage, is now adventuring gear rather than a weapon. I think that makes sense. It was a little odd down here at the bottom of the Player's Handbook. Net was the only one that didn't deal any damage, but it was still considered a weapon. It did have the special property, but I don't see why it's not just an item at that point, like Alchemic Fire, which also appears here, but not in the weapons table. The Trident's damage die has changed from 1d6 to 1d8, and its versatile die is now 1d10 rather than 1d8. I believe they did that because, let's see, Trident was very similar to something else. Yeah, it is identical to a spear, except it weighs a little more and costs a little more, and one's simple and one's martial. So now there's a bit of a distinction between them, which is nice. The lance has the heavy and two-handed properties rather than the special property, okay, which imposed disadvantages on some of its attack rolls, and its damage die has changed from a d12 to a d10. Probably because lance, I've never seen anyone pick the lance, so this is just trying to get it to be picked more. And the war pick now has the versatile property. Musket and pistol, which previously appeared in the Dungeon Master's Guide, now appear in the martial weapons range table. As always, the DM oversees what is available for purchase at shops. So yeah, this was in the back of the DMG would be different types of guns. There were sort of like 3 eras. There was what would now be considered old, so it was like musket and pistol, and then there were modern day weapons, and then there were futuristic weapons. But if your DM didn't know to look there and you were a player, you would never even know about it. The light property now appears in the weapon properties section rather than the glossary. Okay, so now we know what that means. And the thrown property now allows you to draw a weapon as part of the ranged attack. Okay. So let's see. Club, D4. Light. And I'll go over all the masteries later. So yeah, it looks like most of these are the same club diagram. I'm not going to go through every single one, because that would take a while to check everything, but here they are next to each other if you want to take a chance to pause and look. Alright, I do kind of like this setup more, where it's weapon, damage, properties, and then everything else is over to the side, because mastery, only some characters will have access to. And then weight and cost are not very important, so they don't need to be in the middle with everything else. I will take a look at the musket and pistol, however. It's a D12 for the musket, ammunition, loading, two-handed. So the loading property, which was, that's always been something. So it looks like you'll have to reload every shot, which is probably why they went with the musket and pistol and didn't do something where it was like a revolver that would have multiple shots before you have to reload. Okay, let's look at the light property. When you take the attack action on your turn and attack with a light weapon, you can make one extra attack as a bonus action later on the same turn. The extra attack must be made with a different light weapon, and you don't add your ability modifier to the extra attack's damage unless that modifier is negative. Same thing as before. For example, if you take the attack action on your turn and have a short sword in one hand and a dagger in the other, each of which has the light property, you can make one attack with each weapon using your action and a bonus action, but you don't add your strength or dexterity modifier to the damage roll of the bonus action unless the modifier is negative. Okay, that is the same. It's just made much more clear what that does. Because previously, if you look on the left here, it just said, go to this chapter, go to chapter 9. That'll tell you how to do this. So there's almost no point in having it here. And they have thrown. If a weapon has a thrown property, you can throw the weapon to make a ranged attack and can draw that weapon as part of the attack. Okay, that's nice that it's not draw. Okay, that's my turn. Then have to throw. If the weapon is a melee weapon, you use the same ability modifier for that attack roll and damage roll that you would use for a melee attack with a weapon. For example, if you throw a hand axe, you use your strength, but if you throw a dagger, you can use either your strength or dexterity, since the dagger has the finesse property. Awesome. Seems to be the only clarification there was that draw the weapon as part of the action. Okay, so now we get to mastery properties, which is completely new. Each weapon now has a mastery property, as shown in the weapon tables above. That property is usable only by a character who has a feature such as weapon mastery that unlocks the property for the character. Here are descriptions of each mastery property. The properties are provided in alphabetical order. If a game feature lets you replace a weapon's mastery property with another, that weapon must meet any prerequisite specified for the new property. So, I believe a new fighter ability is that they can have two mastery properties on like the same weapon. But let's say the blowgun has Vex. Say you wanted to put Cleave on there. Well, it has to meet the Cleave properties. So melee weapon. So automatically doesn't reach that, so you can't do it, and it's not heavy. So that makes things from getting a little broken, because it would be weird for a blowgun to have Cleave. Now let's see what Cleave is. If you hit a creature with a melee attack using this weapon, you can make an attack roll with the weapon against a second creature within 5 feet of the first. That is also within your reach. On a hit, the second creature takes the weapon damage, but don't add your ability modifier to that damage unless the modifier is negative. You can make this extra attack only once per turn. So sort of similar to the light bonus action attack, but it's just a free attack to someone right next to you. It can't be the same target. So let's see. What weapons have Cleave? A halberd has Cleave, great axe, and that looks like those are the only two. But makes sense. Big, heavy weapons. You're swinging around, and you can kind of hit two on the way. Flex, versatile property is the prerequisite. When you hit with a melee attack using this weapon, you deal its versatile damage even if you're wielding it with one hand. So that makes it very nice. So let's see what has a flex. Okay, the Warhammer. Normally you would need two hands to do the whole D10 damage. And now, if you have the mastery, you can hold up a shield. Or if you're maybe a cleric or something, you can have your other hand available for casting spells. So that's very nice to have. Graze has to be a melee weapon with the heavy property. If your attack roll with this weapon misses a creature, you can deal damage to that creature equal to the ability modifier that you use to make the attack roll. The damage is the same type dealt by the weapon, and the damage can't be increased in any way other than increasing the ability modifier. So basically guarantees that you do a little bit of damage. Could be good for a really any of these could be good for almost anything, any class. Graze, so a great sword, or glaive. Looks to be all of them. Interesting. The first ones we're seeing, there's only 2 that have these. And it looks like for the simple weapons, they all kind of have the same slow, vex, nick. They all have the same, whereas the martial ones have more, which I guess makes sense because martial is supposed to be more complex to learn. Alright, nick has to have the light property. When you make the extra attack of the light property, you can make it as part of the attack action instead of as a bonus action. You can still make this extra attack only once per turn. So this is essentially the cleave. Cleave and nick are very related. One's for heavy, one's for nick. Or one's for heavy, one's for light weapons. Just makes it more efficient. So like a rogue, if they had 2 daggers or a short sword and a dagger, they can make it so they only have to use their action to do this, and then if they're an arcane trickster, they can then cast a spell as well. So let's see what has nick. The scimitar has nick. So does the sickle, light hammer, and dagger. So I guess you couldn't do it with a short sword. I wonder. So because of the way this is worded, would both weapons have to have the nick property or nick mastery? So it would have to be 2 daggers or what else had it? A dagger and a sickle, or could it be the main weapon of the attack still has the light property, so such as a club, you can hit, and then that'll be an interesting clarification to find out. Push, which has to be heavy, 2-handed, or versatile property. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can push the creature up to 10 feet away from you if it's no more than 1 size larger. So basically just the shove action, but baked into a weapon. So this is push, heavy crossbow, so we're now getting into some of the ranged weapons having these abilities. Pike has it. And the Great Club all have the push mastery. Sap, so it requires no other property, so this could be put on any weapon. If you hit a creature with this weapon, that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. Okay, it's very simple. It's called Sap. That almost feels like one where the playtesters couldn't think of a mastery to put there, and they're like, "What's Sap? Simple. Just you can't make an attack." So Morning Star, Flail, Mace. Okay, those seem to be the ones that have Sap. Slow, another. Oh, so I misunderstood. No other properties, so you can only have. I see. So it can't be heavy 2-handed. That's why there are only these very specific ones. So, okay. So this mastery is trying to give those quote-unquote boring weapons something more. This is what I thought it meant slow. No other prerequisite. If you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, I think this is the first one where it's if you deal damage. Its speed is reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. If you hit the creature more than once with this property, the speed reduction doesn't exceed 10 feet. Okay, so let's see what weapons have this for the slow. Musket, longbow. So if you were to make 2 longbow attacks, hit it twice, it's not going to reduce its speed by 20. Or if you were a fighter with multiple attacks, you can't reduce its speed to 0. The whip has slow. The sling, the light crossbow, javelin, and club have slow. Topple, prerequisite heavy, reach, or versatile property. Most of these have been or, right? Had any of them? So this one's been melee and heavy. So that's one important thing to note. Some of the prerequisites are you need both things. Some of them, like the push, you just need one. So topple. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can force the creature to make a Constitution saving throw with a DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus the ability modifier you use to make the attack roll. On a failed save, the creature has the prone condition. So you push them over. It's a shove. Very useful because prone creatures, anyone attacking them then has advantage as long as they're within 5 feet. So topple can be very useful. Let's see. The Trident has topple. Maul. Trident and Maul. Seem to be the only ones. And then finally, Vex. Ammunition, finesse, or light property. If you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against the creature before the end of your next turn. So this is like sort of the opposite of Sap. Sap, they have disadvantage. Vex, you have advantage. And only you for Vex. So let's see. We have pistol, hand crossbow, blowgun, short sword, rapier, short bow, dart, and hand axe. A lot of them have Vex, but always nice to have advantage. And then here we have the net. When you take the attack action, let's just pull up net on the other side here. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can place one of your attacks with a throw of a net at a creature within 15 feet of you. The target must succeed on a dexterity saving throw against a DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your dexterity modifier. The target succeeds automatically if it's huge or larger. Interesting. So I wonder if... So that's assuming the net is a certain size, so I'm sure a DM could create one where it's a bigger net. So maybe a huge and larger creature could be captured, but maybe the netting is too wide that a small creature or tiny creature could sneak out. That could be something interesting to do. On a failed save, the target has the restrained condition until it escapes the net. To escape, the target must use its action or make a DC 10... to make a DC 10 strength athletics check. Escaping on success, a creature within 5 feet of the target can use its action to attempt the same thing. Destroying the net, AC 10, 5 HP, immunity to bludgeoning, poison, and psychic damage. Makes sense. Also frees the target, ending the effect. That looks to be about the same. Except that it now is an attack action, whereas previously you could only make the attack with the net. And then we have Priest Pack, which I won't go into.